Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another live episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson, and it's my pleasure to be here with you guys today on a little bit, I'm going to say, dreary day here on the Gold Coast of Australia. It's coming into summer for us, and usually this is the time of the year that we get a whole lot of storms and a whole lot of really crazy weather. So here's hoping that our internet plays nicely with us today and we're able to stay live and with no interruptions. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. So this particular topic, I was just saying to Robert that this is a topic that's like right up my alley. Let's talk about all things around how to unlock, like how to become an authority in whether it be your job or whether it be your business. And who better to speak to about this particular topic than Mr. Robert Riopel. He's a international best-selling author, app designer, entrepreneur, and trainer. And he's actually spent the last 18 years traveling the world with his absolute passion, which is actually helping people to uncover what their inner genius, their inner greatness is, and actually realizing how they can look at cues or the success cues of the past to actually help them become really, really successful across their business, I'm going to say their family, and also their life. He's been a speaker on stage, and he's spoken on stage with many of the world's greats, the likes of Robert Kiyosaki, for an example. So I know that what Robert's going to be talking about with us today is going to be amazing. He is going to share some really insightful information, but not just insightful information. He's also going to give you actionable steps, like what the heck are the things that you can do that can start to make an incremental change. He calls them cellular changes. How can we make those, small changes that actually makes cellular shifts in your life, so that when you wake up tomorrow, things are a little bit brighter, things are a little bit better, and you are inching your way to the life that you actually want, but doing it all whilst creating yourself as an authority in your job or in your business. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, Robert.
Tracy, I am so excited because, you talk about synchronicity, just the name of your show, it goes right in line with my new book, because I actually, with my new book, it's all about authority. It's called The Authority Key, coming up, that I'm writing, and it's how to unlock and open your door to success. And I use the word unlock actually as an acronym to give people the practical skills. So I'm loving that we're together on this call.
Well, there's no coincidences in life, right? You're supposed to absolutely be here, and you're on the apps. Sorry about it. You can't have a show called Unlocked because I've got it.
Now, I got that. I totally understand. Yeah, and I'll go by the Authority Key.
We'll make it work. But hey, let's talk a little bit about this 18-year career that you've had. Let's kind of go back and tell everybody, a little bit about you. Where have you come from? I know that, back in the early days, it was pretty tough times, right? I know that you kind of went deep into debt at one point, and then managed to really rapidly crawl yourself out of that big deep hole. And by the time you were 32 years old, actually got yourself to financial freedom. So let's give everybody a little bit of backstory on you first.
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Canada. I'm in central Alberta. So as you guys are entering your summer, we're into our fall and entering into our winter. So our days are in the minuses right now, and it's cold.
Ugh.
Now, luckily, we haven't had any snow yet, which is really unusual for this time of year. So I'm feeling very blessed about the weather. But growing up in central Alberta, one of the things I was taught here is when it comes to work hard. Find a company, even if they give you stability, if there's such a thing anymore, and they are paying you, then you do the job even if you don't like it, because that's how you take care of your family. And as I was entering the workforce and learning and doing this, I was working hard. And by the time I was 21, I was being laid off from my third company that I'd been working for. And Tracy, I got to tell you, I was getting a little bit of a complex. I was like, is it me? Is it every company I get hired on to, they end up closing down? Because all three companies had shut down. And I'm like, maybe I'm a bad luck charm. I don't know. And at the time, our economy wasn't really good. So I end up, because I'm a newlywed, I want to take care of my wife. I start delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza. And I end up going from pizza delivery driver. Because of my work ethic, I became a manager. My wife then became my assistant manager. And together we started doing the working hard. In fact, we were working open to close 7 days a week. We know how to work hard. And doing this for about a year and a half, we are now qualified to be franchisees. And we had that fear come in again, because all of a sudden our franchisee came up to us and said, I want you to know I'm decided to get out of Domino's Pizza and I'm selling the 2 stores. And we went into fear mode because we knew if a store got sold, the managers were replaced right away. The new owners wanted to come in. And so my mindset's going, well, we need to find another store to manage. We need to call the other franchisees here in the city and see who wants to hire us. And my wife looks at me and she's like, why would we do that? We're qualified to be franchisees. Why don't we just buy the store? And I looked at her, I'm like, because we don't have any money. That's why we don't buy the store. It's kind of funny how that comes into play. But my wife, I was raised to think inside the box. Don't question the box. Don't even think about the box. And my wife, being the youngest of 5, raised by a single mother, her whole perception was, what box? Let's figure out a way to do it. And from making a lot of mistakes, we started finding out, asking questions, trying to find a way to get funding without having to have the money ourselves. And after about 4 months of making a lot of mistakes, but learning from every time something didn't work, Tracy, that's the key. And I hope your audience caught that. It wasn't that we didn't want to make mistakes. We learned from them, because some of your greatest lessons come from that, I've now experienced. And we ended up being able to get 100% financing for both the stores he had for sale. And we ended up becoming franchisees. And it was like, oh, we've got it made, But here's the unfortunate part. We knew how to run a Domino's Pizza store, but we didn't know how to run a business. And it's 2 totally different things.
Vastly different. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so for the first 2 years, it's amazing that we made it through. Out of sheer tenacity, we made it work as we learned. And after 2 years, we got things in line, started making pretty good money. But that's when, because of our upbringing, and now we have money, what do we do with it? Oh, we keep up with the Joneses. And we started spending money. And by the time we were franchisees for 8 years, we were over $150,000 in personal debt and going down quickly. And that's when we were introduced to personal development and a 3-day training. We walked in, $150,000 in debt, stressed out beyond belief. And 3 days later, we had learned why we were in debt. More importantly, we learned to take responsibility. Quit blaming other people. I was good at blaming others for losing my money, but take responsibility. And third, we learned some actionable steps. And I love that you like actionable steps, because here's the statistic for North America. Unfortunately, only 3% of people will ever put into action something that they've learned or been told how to do. And I think the only reason we did is because we were so stressed out, we had to change. And because of that, all of a sudden we were able to go from being $150,000 in debt to being retired completely financially free 9 months later at the age of 32. And and that's what our mind said right there. It was like, wow, if this information gave us that result, what would more do? And so we ended up just diving into learning from as many people as we could. And that's where I found my passion, was to be a trainer, because my whole dream started like this. I believed if I could help even one person do what my wife and I had been able to accomplish, go from financial struggle to financial success, it would make it all worthwhile. And now, 20 years later, I've now personally taught over 500,000 people around the world in 3 to 5 day trainings, anywhere from 100 to 6,000 students at a time. And I'm living the life that I absolutely love and very blessed to have it. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Good for you. And I mean, like you say, there's so many lessons that can be learned often from, the things that we fail in. And it's just a matter of perspective and how we look at that. We can look at it as failure and that's the end of me and I'm out of this. We look at that failure and we go, okay, well, what lessons could I learn from that? And now we take some different, we might pivot, we might make some tweaks to what we're doing and we do things a little bit differently and you get a different result. So really interesting that, you went down that path. And like you say, my background is that I've been a business coach for some time, come out of a finance background. So, these statistics that you're talking about and understanding early on that being a manager in a business is vastly different to being the owner of the business and the skill set that is required when you're actually the business owner and the buck stops with you. So quite interesting that that you've been down that path and you've experienced all of that. One of the things I suppose that, when we talk about authority, and I can see, that you go back in your story and, there's one level of authority that you get being the store manager, right? And then there's a whole different level of authority that comes with actually being the store owner. So let's talk a little bit about, when we start to unlock and uncover some of the reasons why, where you talk about, like building authority. Why is that important? Why should people even care about that when they're in their job or when they're a business owner? Why care?
Well, yeah, and I'm glad that you're seeing both in a job and a business, because you can be seen as an authority in your job. And I look at it like this. Tracy, have you ever noticed that you can have the same or more experience and knowledge than someone else, but that other person makes more money than you?
Oh,
And we see that all over. And the reason
Mhm.
is because in the perception of someone's mind, they're going, well, they're the authority. They're the one I want to talk to. So you can have the greatest knowledge, the greatest experience, but if people don't know you from Adam, they're not going to be willing to pay you what you're worth. They're not going to be willing. Most business owners and employees, they go hunting for clients. What I would rather do is have my clients come hunting me down, going, where I'm turning away.
Preach. You're speaking my language.
Yeah. And that's why you want to be an authority, because when top of mind awareness, people go, oh, here's a problem I need solved. Who can help me? Oh, that person. Then now, instead of sitting there, I'll give you a great example. I was helping a friend of mine. I'm about to go to Florida. I'm so excited. Finally going to do a live event. I'm going to be flying to Florida next month. And my friend who's putting the event on, he says, I really would like to get a hold of this person who I met, years ago. And he's awesome. He says, you know him, don't you? I said, yeah, let me connect you with him. And the gentleman's name is Jim Quick. And if you've ever heard of him, he's amazing.
Love Jim.
Jim's amazing.
I've
Jim's
done
amazing.
his programs. Awesome programs.
Yeah. So to give you a little backstory, because of my expertise in being seen as an authority, I developed trainers. That's one of my passions. I've trained thousands of trainers. Well, back in 2010, Jim was about to put on his first live training, and he asked my wife and myself to come down to San Diego and audit his training to let him know what I thought of it. What could he improve on? Because he loves to make sure he's always getting better. Amazing, amazing gentleman. And so now, because he's gone on with his mind stuff to working with the Avengers, working with, how cool is that? Being able to coach Tony Stark, being able to coach Thor, right? And so I connected him and my friend because my friend wanted to invite him to be at his training. And because of his status now and being seen as the authority, why? Because he worked hard. Look, this is one of the keys. If you want to be an authority, you've got to put the work in. The U in unlock that he uses as an acronym stands for unbreakable spirit. People are going to test you. People are going to tell you why you can't do it, why you're no good or whatever. You've got to have that unbreakable spirit. And because of his unbreakable spirit, he landed working with the Avengers. And now to book him, you can't just call him. You have to go through his agency. And I just before this interview, I messaged my friend, said, how did your call go with Jim's people? And he's like, I wish I'd known earlier, because his fee plus his flight expenses, I don't have time enough to promote to be able to get that return on investment. And whereas before he was seen as an authority, you would ask him and he would said, okay, pay my flights, I'll be there. And it would cost you maybe a couple $1,000s at the most. But now it's in the tens of thousands of dollars to even hopefully have him come in for an hour to 2 hours to talk. That's the difference of being seen as an authority.
So a lot of that is about, the public perception, right? It's like the positioning of you and the perception that people have of you. And I absolutely, I'm a big fan of Jim, so I'm glad that you brought him up. I love his work, and you're absolutely right. When you can position yourself in that way, and that people see you as the authority, then all sorts of things start to happen. You become in demand. You can raise your prices. People don't bat an eyelid when you say, "Well, it's going to be thousands of dollars to have me come," and now you've got to front up for this, and this. They say, "Yeah, no problem. We'll pay that fee because you're because they perceive that you are worth that spend, and you come with that level of authority that's associated now with your name. It's interesting because one of the things we talk about is that to me is like we call them the unknown expert. So like you gave that example of, how many times have you seen somebody whom you're like, look at them and you're like, what the heck? Why are they doing so well? They're earning so much more money than me and they're in demand, but yet I know so much more than that person. And what Robert's talking about today, this is the number one reason why, is because they are seen as the authority, and they've done many things to position themselves to create that level of authority. So let's kind of delve a little bit deeper here, because I know there are so many amazing people that will be watching this show today that are probably have had that thought once or twice in their mind, where they've been, online scrolling and they're like, I know that person, and man, I just know so much more than they do. So what are some of the first steps that somebody could take to start positioning themselves as the authority? What do they need to do?
Well, and one of the things that I like to focus on, because I know you cover a lot of the practical skills, things like being a podcast host will help you, being an author will help you, all of that. I like to dive deep into the person themselves, because it comes to your self-confidence. Because if you don't have the confidence to sit there and say, look, if you want me to come talk, that's $50,000. If you sit there and you're like, well, I'd like to talk, and my fee is $50,000.
Yeah,
you're going to get a totally different response, right? So I like to work on that. And one of the biggest things I've noticed that holds people back from becoming an authority is the N of unlock, which is they're not tapped into their natural gifts, their natural talents. See, they're trying to become an authority in something that either they're knowledgeable or they've spent a while learning it, but they don't like it. And so that's why the resistance, because to be an authority in anything, as you know, Tracy, you have to put the work in. You have to do the unsexy, ugly, behind-the-scenes work that no one gets to see, and it's monotonous, and it's a pain in the ass, but you've got to be willing to put that in so that when you're seen, people are going, wow, there's a reason they're an authority. And that's the reason most people aren't willing to put that work in, is because they're trying to do something because it makes them money, or they've learned about it and they may be good at it, but they don't enjoy it. So tap into your natural gifts, tap into your natural talents, and then choose to be an authority in one of those arenas. So now you're going to sit there and go, you know what? I don't mind. Like, I hate studying. Tracy, I hate studying. As a kid, I barely got by school. But now, because I love training, I will study and practice like nobody's business. I will outwork anybody to get prepared for training. Why? Because it's what I love to do, and I want to be good at it. So I hope that makes sense. That's a big
absolutely.
Right,
it's that alignment to, like, who am I? What do I value? What do I enjoy doing? What do I actually want my life to look like? And once you establish that, then that's what you do. A lot of people would talk about, finding your purpose, and in this, that you're talking about finding your unlocking and unleashing your natural gifts, finding out what do you actually really enjoy, and then that provides you with the purpose, the momentum to just keep going. Interesting, because just a couple of nights ago, I now love learning to, like you, like I dive really deep into stuff when I need to, when I know that there's a specific reason that I need to learn something. So, it's nothing for me to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning and work with somebody in another side of the world, right the way through all hours of the night. I mean, that's just what you do to be able to gain the skills, the knowledge, and the expertise that you need to be able to move your life, and also the lives of those people that you actually help forward. Really a really important point that you talk about. I know that you also, so this, moving forward, and this untangible, so the skill set of bringing your confidence, because let's talk a little bit more about that, because in my opinion, that's the one thing that often holds people back. It's this, I'm going to say almost like the invisible shackles that they keep around their ankles that keeps them safe and hidden, and not comfortable in sharing their natural gifts or their authentic self, as we would call it. So what are some of the things that people can do? Because, you can become an authority even if you are somebody who's really shy or who's an introvert. And a lot of people think, oh, I can't do that because I'm too shy, and that's only for those extroverted people. So what can somebody do, whether they're an introvert or an expert, to help them build the confidence they need to be able to step into their new identity as an authority?
Yeah. Well, I love that you're actually naturally going right down the acronym for me. And we hadn't
Oh,
even planned
okay,
this.
good.
The L stands for lateral thinking. In other words, quit trying to do it on your own. Quit trying to figure it out on your own. Lateral thinking. This is why I love masterminds. And especially if there's something, say you're introverted and you don't like to go out and ask people and talk to people, then hire someone who loves that. Get in alignment with someone who loves doing that. So bring on a broker, bring on an agent. So like as an example, Jim is the nicest guy in the world. So that's why now to get to him, you have to go to his agent, because his agent has no problem saying,
Yeah.
if you want Jim, you need this, 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 and this. So now Jim can step back and be like, oh, okay, you got things through and I'm now booked. Great. I'm ready to have fun with your audience. So for your introverts, and people go, well, Robert, I can't afford, I'm small right now. I can't afford an agent. Get creative with it. Get creative. So when you use lateral thinking, all that simply means is, quit trying to go like this. What did Einstein say? You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So if you're sitting there going, well, I can't afford to have an agent, then get together with growth-minded people and then ask them, what are some ways we could do this? Who do you know? Who could I trade with? And so if you have a skill that can serve someone else, and they're like, oh my God, I've been looking for what you do. And you go, I've been looking for what you do. Why don't we do the barter system? Because I'm just getting started and I would love to do that. And so get creative in how you create it. See, most people, what holds them back is competition. Get rid of the C being competition. Make it cooperation. Cooperate. If you're believing in an abundant universe, there's plenty for everybody. So quit trying to compete. Make yourself that unique person where they're going, oh, they do the same thing, but I love the way they do it. I'm going for them. So that's what the lateral thinking will give you. And most people, we've been conditioned, unfortunately, Tracy, to try and figure it out on our own. Think we're weak if we ask for help. No, you're not. You're not. Being willing to have openness to other people, and that's kind of the O stands for open mind. You've got to be open to other people's perspectives. You may be the authority, but if you're so closed down, you're not going to be the authority for long. Take a look at in 1950s in North America. If you were to pull up a list of the Fortune 500 companies in the 50s, maybe 2% of them are still around today. Because even though they were huge companies, they were closed-minded, and all of a sudden they became outdated. They weren't willing to adjust and change. So as an authority, you've always got to be learning. You've got to be updating. You've got to be surrounding yourself with the people and the lessons to make sure you're staying innovative as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of things that I just want to add to that. When you're talking about that lateral thinking, there's a saying, it's not a lack of resources. It's often a lack of resourcefulness that actually prevents people from being the success that they can be. So, like Robert's saying, just thinking about and having that concept or that thought pattern of, well, what opportunities exist here? What could I do? And even just sitting down and taking some notes, if money and all of the obstacles that you often put in front of yourself, if you removed all of those, what would be possible if I was, if I did that? What could and would I do if that were the case? And this saying that I really love too is that, if you want to go fast, then you might go it alone. But if you want to go far, you want to do that with a team of people around you. And that's often, to be an authority, you want to be around for a long period of time. It's not a get in, quick win and you're out. Being an authority in something means that you have, you're going to stick around and you're here for the long term. And being around like-minded people, so important. So I love those.
And actually, I'm going to pause you there because, see, you just went on a paradigm shift that I had even a year ago. And you're talking about being
Mm-hmm.
around like-minded people. And I love that. And I would say that to my audiences. But one of my mentors last year took that right out of my head, because he
Mm-hmm.
looked at me and said, Robert, if you're around complainers and you're like-minded, you're going to be a complainer. So you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be around like-minded people.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So
suppose I'm talking about that in the sense of if you're looking to be successful in something, you would
yes.
find other
So
successful, like-minded people.
I'll give you the adjustment, because this is what changed my life. He said, look for growth-minded people, because the difference between like-minded and growth-minded, a growth-minded person, they're going to be there to pick you up when you stumble. They're going to be your greatest cheering squad when you're doing well, but they're also the people that are going to be willing to have the tough conversations with you when needed. You know, one of the reasons I have no problem admitting, Tracy, I would not be doing what I do today. I would not be here with you today if it wasn't for my wife. Because one of the gifts that she gives me, she's not willing to let me play smaller than I am. Is if it was left up to me, I would be in a job still, miserable, but I'd be comfortable. And
Yeah.
even when she's had to kick me in the ass and say, step up, you're playing too small. And of course, always open to it. Like, yes, honey, I could be, resistance comes in. But when I look back and I go, thank goodness she's willing to have that conversation with me when it's needed, because I do get into my own fear. I get into my own self-doubt and I start playing small again. And she comes along and goes, step up,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, snap out of that.
And that's why having growth-minded people are so important.
Yes, that's a great reframe, and for people to think about it in that perspective. I love that. So let's go here then, Robert, because on this journey, it's people think it's not always easy, right? And it's like often we can get into this, I'm going to say, the vortex of overwhelm on the journey, and trying to make your way through the life, the pathway that you're trying to create to success. What can people do in that journey to prevent them from getting into a state of overwhelm? What are some of the things that they can do there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because one of the reasons, and the main reasons people get overwhelmed, is because either they're way too far in the future. They're like, here's where I am. I want to become an authority. I want to make more money. And this is what it's going to look like. And then their mind gets caught up with all the 1,000,001 what if scenarios. How will I do it? How long will it take? What do I need to do to get here? No wonder you get overwhelmed. Or the other reason they get overwhelmed, Tracy, is they are so far in the past, focusing on everything that was done to them, every reason why they can't be successful. I've tried it before. And if you're in the future or in the past, you are going to be overwhelmed and you are fighting a losing battle. So what I recommend to people is, especially when you start to feel overwhelmed, and if you're listening and you're live right now, I want everybody to do this. Take a nice deep breath in and let it out. Focus on your breath and come back to the present and ask yourself this simple question. What is one step I can take right now to move in that direction? And especially if you're really overwhelmed, make it so small, so simple that your mind goes, well, that's nothing. I want you to mess with your mind here, because that's where the saying, one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it. And most people get overwhelmed because they're overanalyzing and processing. So come back to the present, ask yourself, what's one step I can take that step, and then celebrate that. It doesn't have to, just like a simple fist bump could be good. Go like this, go, yes, I did it. And then take another step. And then this is where success will come, that one step at a time. So that's how I combat overwhelm whenever I get it coming into my life, Tracy.
Great, thank you. And yes, that one step forward can make all the difference. You just do that, and then the next one, and the next one, and before you know it, you're at your destination. So one of the in terms of like building authority. So I want to talk about this from two angles. So we've kind of gone down the path of the intangible. It's like showing up that the person, the greatness that you are, and having the confidence to be able to command the prices, show up and be the authority. What sort of, I suppose, behaviors and attributes does one need to adopt, maybe learn, develop over time to get them to the point that they are they are that authority. They've assumed that new, I'm going to say, identity, because I think that's a really important thing when we if we're not identifying with the person we are wanting to be and becoming that, and you're still kind of looking in that rear vision mirror and like still the person that you were, 5 weeks ago, for example, because every day we're evolving, then you can often sabotage yourself in being in stepping into that authority space. So what are some of the things that people can do to help with that?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things I've noticed that holds people back is they go through the imposter syndrome. And so one of the greatest things a person can do, and in not just in your business or your job, but actually in life, is be authentic. And so what that means is maybe you're just getting started. Maybe so you want to become the world's greatest X, but you're just starting. So it's like, how do I develop becoming that authority? Well, what you do, and this turns into a way of doing marketing as well, is you say, you know what? Let's say when I became a trainer, I could sit there and go, I want to become a life coach. And well, Robert, here's what's going on in your mind. Robert, you haven't had any coaching clients yet. You're just getting started. Who would want to be coached by you? And so then I come back and my first thoughts and first conversations with people would be, look, I've been training now and I've decided to take on some clients as a personal coach to them. And because I'm just getting started, authentic right there, tell them I'm just getting started. Because I'm just getting started, I would love to be able to get some recognition. And so I'm looking to bring on 6 clients at no cost. And because I'm getting started, you're going to be the person I'm practicing on. And if you're willing to give me honest feedback and a testimonial, then I would love to spend the next 6 weeks doing weekly coaching calls with you. Now, there's a number of things for you, Tracy. A, you're not going to build confidence because you're now putting in the practice. Number one thing that most people that become authorities do is they practice. 2, you're actually working with clients. So most people, they try to figure it all out and be perfect before they start. But once you're in the game, things change quickly. So that's why if you're not in the game, you're never going to know. So now you've got clients that you get to work with. And if you ask them that in exchange for you coaching them, they give you a testimonial, now you have social proof, which builds your confidence. So now then you work with them for 6 weeks, and then you may go, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've got my coaching business. Here's what my clients are saying. And because I'm really still in the beginning, I'm going to give you a ridiculous price. 6 weeks of coaching with me is only going to be $50 a month, $50 or $50 a week. And here's what you're going to get for it. And so if you'd like to do that, it's only $300. And now, again, and if you were willing to give me a testimonial, I'll keep that price for you. Now you're getting more practice. See, people think, and here's why they struggle. They go, well, I'm here and authority makes this much money. I've got to make that jump to be seen as an authority. No, take it step by step by step. And also get creative. Like if we go to, and I'll give you a tip of that if you'd like, on creativity. So going back to the acronym, the C in Unlock stands for contribution. Contribution to others. Not when you're successful, not when you've made it, but right now. You start contributing. And I'll give you an example of one of my students that I taught to be a trainer. Here's how he did his first $1 million a year within a year and a half of becoming a trainer. One of it, he's a very, very, totally is into his church, totally into his religion. He's very, very spiritual. And so at his church, he noticed that they were doing 52 trainings a year. There's Bible study. There's all these different trainings that people could go to at no cost. And he said, I happen to be really good at creating wealth and helping people understand their finances. He says, I would love to do a training on one of the weeks where I'll talk about wealth management, wealth creation, no cost as my way of contributing. See, people think that contributing is only money, but your time, your talent, your information, those are huge commodities that you have. And so he started doing this training, and also other churches asked him to come to them because it was once for a year for his church because every week they had something different. He became the second most popular training behind Bible study out of all 52 weeks. And that message got spread around to other churches. So all of a sudden here he is contributing to other churches. And of course, people then started coming to him saying, wow, how do I do more with you? Well, check me out. I've got this training coming up. And within a year and a half, he had a 7-figure training business because he was contributing. He was doing it out of not, I need the money. It was, how can I help others?
Mm-hmm. Coming at it from that heart-centered angle of contribution rather than, hey, I'm going to create this because what can I get out of it, but what can I give that can make the biggest amount of difference. And I think you mentioned something a little bit earlier that was around, you just need to change one person at a time, like help one person at a time. Like this whole journey to becoming an authority, just like Robert has talked about today, it just starts with one person. What could you do for just one person first? And then you end up with the ripple effect. You're helping 2, then 4, then 8, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, you've built the authority that you're seeking.
And
I
you
have to ask.
Reinvent sometimes too. You have to reinvent because,
I don't.
If I may, can I give you an example of that?
I would love you to.
Yeah, BC before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing 200,000 miles a year flying around the world. I got to pick and choose what events I was doing. I loved my time off. So I was taking 6 months a year off and, I just loving life. March 10th of 2020, I land back in Canada from doing a 3-day event in India. March 11th, my world changed because of COVID. And I went from 200,000 miles a year down to zero, flying zero. And I had a choice. I could have played the victim or I could have asked 2 very powerful words. And if you're listening on a replay or listening live, write these down, please. What's next? Those words will change your life because after the initial shock and all of a sudden all my live events around the world being canceled, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue gone, my wife and I sat down and we said, what's next? And what's next we decided was I'd wanted to slow down even more. 3 years ago, we had bought a beautiful acreage that we live on with the idea of eventually 6, 7, 8 years down the road, building our own training center on it. So we're sitting there and we go, what's next? And it's like, well, you're home. There's, you're not going anywhere for a while. Why don't we move that up and build a training center now? And of course, fear came in. It's like, well, we got all this revenue gone. We don't know how long it's going to last. It's going to cost a lot of money to do this. So 2 more words that we use, Tracy and I want people to write these down as well. All in. We made the decision that we're in. We're all in. And because of that, last September, we made the decision. December 12th, we broke ground. And this last month and a bit, I finally got to move into my new office. On the other side of my wall is a 1,500 square foot training center with a 900 square foot prep center on the other side of it. And now we're still in our medical state of emergency here in Canada, in Alberta, where I live. So I can't have live people here. So most people go, it didn't work out. 2 words, what's next? In the next 2 weeks, I'm turning it into a super Zoom room where I can have multiple cameras, stage to be on, see 400 to 500 of my students on screens because I'm willing to make those adjustments. And the reason most people resist making adjustments is because they go into things for the money. And I'm gonna shock some of your listeners right now. If you're wanting to become an authority because of the money, don't do it. You're doing it for the wrong reason. And that's why you're struggling. This is why it goes back to those natural talents that you have. If you love it, you're going to be helping people. And if you're helping people, listen to this. Money becomes a beautiful side effect. And then as an authority, I'd rather have money becoming that beautiful side effect instead of the reason I'm doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that.
I get a little passionate about this.
Congratulations. Look, I'm right there with you. I totally agree with what you're saying. When you, it's like these shows, like a lot of people will start a show like this, right? And they peter out. But when you do it because you actually love it and you enjoy bringing, people like you and allowing our audience to hear you, well, it becomes the joy. I love showing up every single week and doing these shows. because I thoroughly enjoy it. Makes a real big difference. It's not attached to money. It doesn't cost anybody to come here. I don't get paid anything for this. I just thoroughly enjoy doing it. And I love those two things that you're talking about, well, what's next? And being willing to pivot and not being so rigid in our thinking and constantly evolving, I think is a really important thing, so that you can continue to be successful no matter what the economic climate is, no matter what the circumstances are. If you have that, I'm going to use your words, growth mindset and open-mindedness to be thinking about, well, what else could I do? What's next? What opportunities exist? And now am I willing to go all in? When you make that decision to go all in, there is no other option but to be successful. Right. You haven't left yourself any other option. So I love that. We've got there is one more letter in this, in the unlock acronym. So let's go there. The K.
Yeah, we've touched on it already, but it's something I'm very passionate about, is knowledge. This is, as an authority, I even though I train all over the world, I am still in the student's seat in as many trainings as I can. Because the moment I think I know it all, I'm done. So I am so passionate about keeping my knowledge going. What do I like to learn? Well, Robert, do you use it all? Not by a long shot, but the passion of it always blows me away how I'll learn something, and then it may be years down the road, I'll go, oh yeah. And no wonder I learned that. It's helping me out now. But a lot of people, they think if I learn it, I got to use it right away. And if I don't, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. And they beat themselves up. Not me. I just love to go in and I love to just increase my own knowledge, because it took me until I was 31 to really understand how powerful, introspection and learning about myself and increasing my knowledge was. Until 31, it was like, I've got to do it on my own. Don't ask for help. That's weakness. Don't show vulnerability. That's weakness. But the moment that shift happened and my wife and I created that result, it was like nothing was going to stop us from learning after that. Nothing. So that's what the K stands for.
Lovely. I love that. Well, I know that one of the things you also talk about, and I think this is really important, is like there's the 4 phases of life that people constantly go through. And I'm sure that there's, there may be some ups and downs in those, because that's life, right? We have the ups and the downs. And I want to uncover those 4 phases so that people can sort of reflect on what you're talking about in these 4 phases, and maybe even, they'll understand, well, what phase am I actually in? And maybe even just a few tips as to how they move themselves forward through the next phase.
Yeah, and this is where, so going back to the title of my book, The Authority Key, How to Unlock and Open the Door to Success. The OPEN is the acronym for the 4 phases. And what I want people to understand, this came from a dear friend of mine who started this research. I nicknamed him years ago the Quantum Monk. And the reason I did is because not only was he actually a monk for 8 years, did over 15,000 hours of meditation, but he also studies quantum physics. So he can do all about like spirituality and back it up with the science behind it. And what he discovered is that we're constantly going through 4 phases in life. He calls them his chaos modules. And the O in open stands for the observation phase. Now, because you asked it, Tracy, I'm going to say this. I want people to understand you have no control of when you go in and out of a phase. You have no control. The illusion of control is just an illusion. But you can, if you know how to identify what phase you're in, it'll give you the tools of what to do to really embrace and maximize it. So when you're in the open observation phase, this is when it's a creation phase. This is where it's time to do your vision boards. Ask yourself, what would I truly love my life to look like? My business, my relationships, my health. This is the time to meditate. This is the time. It's not about doing. It's not, oh, here's what I'd love to do. Here's how I'm going to do it. No, just dream. This is the time to dream of what's possible. And so this is the time, instead of being a human being or a human doing, you're a human creating the life you truly want. Okay. Because then that's the observation phase. So you're observing, what is it that life has? Then you go into the P, and the P stands for the Pamper phase. Now, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, a lot of people do this, but they're the ones that miss this phase the most because they don't believe they deserve it or they have time for it. The Pamper phase is where you take care of you. If you don't take care of you, you can't take care of others. It goes to that old adage, you cannot give what you don't have. So when you're in the pamper phase, this is the time to get a manicure, a pedicure, go on a vacation or plan a vacation. Maybe you go for a massage. Maybe you just take 10 minutes, sit down and read a book if you enjoy reading. And this is the one I learned the hard way. When I became a trainer, and in 2002, I started assisting and doing trainings. 2004, I led my very first one. And from the moment of 2004 to September of 2008, I did over 200 trainings, multi-day trainings around North America. I got burnt out because I forgot to take care of me. And because of burnout, I decided I had to take a year off. That 1 year turned into 3.5 years because not only was I burnt out, but I was not taking care of myself. I had herniated a disc standing the wrong way on stage all those hours. And I went through 2 back surgeries. Oh, you better believe I learned how to start taking care of myself. So in the pamper phase, this is where 2 things to take in consideration. 1, be selfish. A lot of people, they go, but Robert, if I do this, it's being selfish. Good on you. Good on you. You have to be selfish because, again, you cannot give what you don't have. The second one is be creative. So for me, it might be when I enter a pamper phase, it might be just taking out my phone, pulling up an app I use all the time called Calm to calm my mind. And I'll take 20 minutes and I'll just listen to the sound of rain. I love the sound of rain. It quiets me, my mind down. That's taking care of me. Or when I was traveling all over the world, people were going, Robert, why are you willing to hop on a plane for 16 hours, 18 hours, one way, 30 hours of travel? 1, I love helping people all over the world. But 2, the moment I sit in my seat on that plane, that's my time. That's my time. I don't connect to the internet. I don't do business. I watch movies because I love movies. I eat great food, drink great wine, and read because I love to read. And I get a little sleep because I know the moment I'm off that plane, the next 3 to 5 days, I'm on stage for up to 12 hours a day. So I've got to take care of me. That's the pamper phase. The E stands for the energy phase. This is where you get it done.
Yeah.
This is the time where you do your emails, you do your meetings, you create the documents you have to. When I'm in an energy phase, Tracy, some of those days, like you, because I have students and trainings all over the world in different time zones, I can easily put in an 18-hour day when I'm in the energy phase. Now, at the end, am I tired? Yes. But am I burnt out? No. Because of the pampering, I've taken care of myself. Recently, this backdrop behind me, I put this backdrop up because I did a 2-day training that was 9 hours a day, full on with my students. And at the day after, I was wiped out. So I had what's called a freedom day, where if I didn't want to get out of bed, I didn't have to. And that was okay. So when you're in your energy phase, if you're taking care of yourself in the pamper phase, you can get a lot more done. And here's the other thing on the energy phase. A lot of people go, Robert, this all sounds great. And, Tracy's probably taught us this before, but wow, you don't know my life. I'm a busy person. I got a family. I've got a job or a business. I don't have time to do anything else. Do what you guys are recommending to become an authority. And what I've learned over the years, and I want to see if you agree with me, Tracy, there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. And most people are good at being busy. So on my calendar, I have what's called focus time. Now, going back to the pamper phase, the first thing I put on my calendar, whenever my wife and I do up, say, a quarter, 3 months at a time, before anything else goes on our calendars, we put our pamper time on our calendars. Time for each other, time for ourselves, time for family. Just like in wealth, money, they say pay yourself first. Why wouldn't you do that with your time? So then the second thing is for the energy phase, I put in focus time. Because I'm writing my new book, I could come into my office and go, I'm going to write my new book. 8 hours later, I'm like, wow, was I ever busy? And then I look back and I'm like, but I didn't seem to get much done on the book. What was I doing? Oh, I was on social media. I was instant messaging people. I was emailing people. And so I'll put it on. And because research shows that you can only be truly focused for about an hour at a time before you start getting distracted. So I might put 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., write book. Now, when it comes up and I'm doing that, no other distractions. And in that 1 hour being productive, it's equal to about 6 hours of being busy, which means I'm actually freeing up time.
I love it.
I hope your audience is getting this.
we call that, the time blocking method, of that really focused time. And I love that. So, I mean, all the things that you've spoken about today in terms of creating, that your ability to be able to be an authority in whether it's your job or whether it's in your business, taking on board the things that that Robert's spoken about today and are really, really important. They underpin create the foundation for you to be able to springboard off of that to create the authority. But not only that, actually create a life that you love, because a lot of people get I suppose misaligned or not quite understanding. I've got this concept of being an authority, being bossy, being being heavy-handed, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about stepping into your own greatness. Who are you at a core level? What do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? And start creating your authority and your life to almost, you're gonna manufacture the life that you want through design. So I love all the things that you've spoken about. I want to let everybody know, you've got a book that you've already created. You've got your brand new book coming out. So I want to make sure that we let all of our viewers know where to go and get a copy of your book. So let me pop that up on the screen. You guys need to head on over to robertriopel.com. I've just popped it up on the screen /book 1. So if you go there, you'll be able to get a copy of Robert's book, Success Left a Clue. And a lot of what he's talking about today is actually spoken about more inside of the book that he's holding up on the screen right now. So go and get yourself a copy of that. And secondly, you've got a brand new book coming out very, very shortly. So let me give you an opportunity to tell everybody a little bit more about that book. When are you planning on having that hit the shelves?
Yeah, and I do say there is a caveat though. When people go to robertriopel.com, they get to download the entire digital copy of Success Left a Clue, but it does come with a caveat. I did not write this book for you to buy it, or sorry, you get it as a gift, to read it, put it on the shelf and make it shelf help. That's not why I wrote the book. Step number 3 in this book is taking action, and that's what most people don't do. So I actually wrote it as a manual where there's action steps. And as you're reading through it, it'll actually say, hey, did you do the last action step? If not, stop reading right now, go back, do the action, and then continue reading, because I know people are creatures of habit. So I want to make sure that they actually do those steps. If they follow the book, do not let the simplicity fool you. Follow the steps, and I guarantee you'll take your life to another level. The new book that I am writing, The Authority Key, a lot of what we're talking about today is going to be part of that book. And we got to make sure I get to the end of uncluttered, because that's, or of open, because that's a finish up one. But we're looking at first or second quarter of 2022 is when that one will be released. And it's going to give you the practical skills of being an authority, but also how to make sure you avoid the self-sabotage. How do you not take yourself out? And so it'll really dive into, we'll also cover things like the 4 currencies in there. What I call the authority master key will be covered in there. So it's going to be a book that is going to go into much more detail, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about today, and plus more.
Oh, I'm excited for it. So, you'll make sure that you come back to me and let me know when that book is ready to go, so I can get that out to everybody and let them know where they can get a copy of the new book. So let's make sure that we wrap this up, and we make sure that we give everybody the the last letter in the open.
Yeah, and this one I had to be creative, because the N is not the first letter of the word, it's actually the second letter, and it actually stands for unclutter. And which another name for that is chaos. Here's what happens is life's going along, and all of a sudden, have you ever noticed you get hit up the side of the head and chaos enters your life? Most people then they resist it. But I want your audience to understand, Tracy, that chaos is natural. As human beings, we're meant to evolve, and chaos comes into our life to force us to evolve. And most people resist it. So all of a sudden, because they resist it, they get the lesson again and again and again and harder every single time. But if you learn to courageously embrace chaos, you can actually cooperate with it. So the reason I call it unclutter is because the easiest way to courageously volunteer for chaos in your life is to unclutter things. So as an example, have you ever gone to the refrigerator, you opened up and you're like, oh, I think there's something in there I need to clean out. So you show the universe that maybe you go clean out your closet, you go clean out the refrigerator. Every couple of weeks, I come into my office. I unclutter my office, get rid of things I don't need anymore. Go into your closet. What clothes can you sell or give away, donate? But that you know, the rule, if you haven't wore something for 6 months, unless it's seasonal, you're not going to wear it again. So you might as well free up. The universe abhors a vacuum. So as you let go and create space, more of what you want will come in. And so when you do this, I love what my friend Greg says, the quantum monk. He said this: instead of being willing to live life, courageously allow life to live you. Because remember what I said about people thinking they have control? You don't. And chaos is going to come in your life anyway. So embrace it, but take the sting out of it so that the universe doesn't have to test you. And I'll give an example of that. When I told you, Tracy, I took a year off because I was overwhelmed and turned to 3.5 years. I had made a commitment. I'm going to take 1 year off and I'm going to come back and train. So the universe started giving me, great spirit, universe, God, whatever you want to go by, starts going, Robert, you said you're going to train in a year. It's been over a year. And I didn't listen. So it gave me the lesson harder and harder. 2 years into my break, I got a lesson I could not ignore. I was attacked by a dog that lunged for my throat. Thank goodness it got my chin instead. But my lesson was, because it ripped through my chin here, 1 inch further, it would have got my jugular, and me and my gift would have been gone just like that. And I got the lesson. I could have went, why did that happen to me? Or I could say, why did that happen to me? And all of a sudden, saying came to my head, a universal principle: that which is not utilized is eliminated. I wasn't using my gift, and it can be gone in a heartbeat. And in that moment, I decided I had to train again. Not for this. I had taken care of that years ago, the money side. I had to train again because it's what my passion is. And that's why I will train, I will teach till you'll have to roll me on a stage in a wheelchair. Because if I can still speak, I'm going to teach people, because that's what my gift is.
And I'm sure that given your mentality, even if you couldn't speak, you would still do it. You would find a way to make, to be able to make that happen. So obviously it's your passion. It's the reason your purpose and the reason that you're on this earth. So I want to say thank you so much for being here today and being a guest that's just willing to share and share all and unlock the secrets to being able to create this level of authority. And what I want people to know is that anybody can do this. You start from where you're at. And what Robert said is that, you just put 1 foot in front of the other, you take 1 step forward and you just keep going. And I would encourage you to go on over to Robert's website, get yourself a copy of the book. But like he said, like with everything, you can't, have a different tomorrow if you don't start doing things differently today. So when you get that book, you want to have it out, you want to have it, just on your on your desk, and you want to be using that as a guide, as a resource, rather than a dust collecting item that looks nice on a shelf. Making sure that we actually do that, because it's very, very true. Very few people actually take action on the things that they learn. So the fact that you are here today, you've had the opportunity to learn from somebody such as Robert. You want to make sure that you actually implement the things that he's spoken about, because it's very, very important to the way in which your life is going to look, in the future. So thanks so much for being here. I want to thank everybody else for being here today with us on another episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. And you guys know now, I'll be back again with another amazing guest on Wednesday of next week. And my Friday sessions will be starting again, beginning of December. We'll kick them off. I'll do a bit of a pre-Christmas sessions, and then we'll be back again with the Friday shows in the early New Year of 2022. So thanks very much, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys again next week. Bye for now.